Today I'm going to share some tips on how to create awesome mood boards in Midjourney, but also how to use them more effectively. We're going to start simple and work our way up, starting with how to create a mood board in Midjourney. And it's really simple when you're on the Midjourney website. You come down here to personalize. And you can scroll down and you'll notice we have some mood boards here. I can just come up here and click create. And the first thing I'm going to do is give my mood board a name. I'm going to call it DaVinci Art. So then I come down here to upload images. And here I have a whole bunch of images of artwork made by Leonardo da Vinci. I click open, let them upload. Now sometimes you'll get errors like this with images that they don't believe fits the community. Just get rid of that, let them go through. And now we have our images on the mood board. You can see here our image that got the error, which I'm just going to ignore for now. For now, we have a whole bunch of artworks here by Leonardo da Vinci. And this is one way to create a mood board. This is just simply grabbing a bunch of images and popping them on there. However, picking an artist, especially a public domain artist or something like that, is a great way to get a certain vibe. Now, if I want to use this mood board, I simply click use in prompt and it will add the code at the top. And if I copy that code, it'll also produce a shorter version of that code after I use it. So I'm going to add a simple prompt in there like a man walking down a busy street. I submit that, and we get these images that are somewhat reminiscent of the Da Vinci style of images that I've uploaded. Now also, when we come back, you notice it says here mood board Da Vinci Art. If I click on that, it produces this much shorter code that we can use. But one thing I recommend is if this is a style that is also somewhat within Midjourney, I can come up the top here and type in the style of Leonardo da Vinci if I really want to sort of lean on the data set a little bit more heavily as well. And we're then able to reinforce that style of the mood board in our prompt as well in order to get a slightly better result again. But because it is a form of personalization, I can come up the top here and bring my stylization right up, even up to max, but I think about 400 is pretty good. But I can submit that, even submit another one at full. Now by bringing the stylize up to 400, we've created these images which rely a little bit more on the mood board, as bringing the stylize value up references it a bit more. When we move up to 1000, we get something that is very much more in line with that mood board. But keep in mind that these look a lot like drawings, and we've actually uploaded a lot of paintings as well. Now I could use this again and simply go a painting in the style of Leonardo da Vinci if I really want to do that. However, what I recommend is if I come back to personalize, if I open up my DaVinci Art mood board, you'll notice it's a bit of a mix. The visual styles don't stick. So my next tip is actually to create a mood board by really honing down the visual style of your images, whether it's by an artist or just simply a visual style by many artists. So this time I go back to personalize, create a new mood board. I might call this one DaVinci Drawing. This time when I upload the images, if I have links, I can also use that as well. But I go upload images. I then select only the images that look like drawings. I then upload, and now you'll see I've got nothing but DaVinci drawings. If I want to get rid of any of these, like this one here, I can just hit the little bin icon, and it's gone. Same with any that are unable to upload, but we have our DaVinci Drawing mood board. And if I follow the same process, then I can also upload nothing but DaVinci paintings if I really want to get his painting style. And by using one or the other, you can see here with these images, one looks a lot like a drawing and one looks a lot like a painting. And I've brought the stylize up to 400 on these images because I really wanted to make sure we reference that mood board as much as possible. So far, we've mentioned that you can actually use an artist or try and nail down a visual style, which is kind of like the base of what mood boards are designed for. But there's actually more than one way to use this. You don't have to go and source the images. You can also come back to personalize, create a new mood board, but this time, instead of uploading images or adding them from a link, which I haven't shown, it just simply adds a link here and you can pop one image at a time into that URL. What I'm going to do instead is go add to gallery. And what I can do is use images I've already generated from Midjourney. So I come up the top here to search and type in double exposure. I get a whole bunch of double exposure images. And I can simply go through and click on the days to find some images I want to use for my mood board. So notice how most of these have a white background with a double exposure effect. Not all of them, but I could essentially go through and find what I think is going to work best for this mood board. Now, you can't add too many images. You will get a warning saying you've selected too many, but let's also just add these in for a little bit of fun. When you're done, scroll back up to the top, head back, and it will upload those images. I'm going to call this one double exposure. If I come down, you'll notice all these images have a double exposure effect. So now, if I decide to use that in a prompt, and I use the same prompts we used earlier, like a giant mech robot terrorizing the city, or a man walking down a busy street. And for a man walking down the busy street, we get that double exposure style applied pretty successfully just using the mood board without even prompting for it. Now, the mech robot is kind of there, kind of not there. It's not really as successful. So I thought I'd experiment. It's got the same look, but by adding double exposure, it just obviously puts that style on there, but it does refer to the visual style of the mood board with the white backgrounds to get the effect this time around, but this time reinforcing it with the prompt. Now, another tip for using your mood boards is if I decided to take our busy man walking down the street here and use this prompt, and I click use down here, not the text, because I want to include the actual mood board code, stylize at 400, but I'm going to come down. I have my DaVinci painting here. If I click on that, it adds the second code. So remember, you can stack multiple mood boards into your images to kind of mix up the results. So when I submit that, we've created some very unique looking artwork by combining those mood boards. And if we come back, you'll notice we have both of them listed here. I can use the prompt again. However, if I want to take the first here, which is the double exposure, and I wanted to make it a little bit stronger to kind of introduce more of it into the image, I can put in 2 colons, and the default value for this is 1. I can increase its strength to say 1.5 or 2. And if I really wanted to be 100%, I could just say double colon 1 or even 0.9 for the DaVinci code. So you can actually add strengths to the end of your mood boards here to sort of dial them up and down. So when I submit, we get some more unique images by blending those styles together. So you can dial that up and down and experiment to see what kind of images you can produce. Now keep in mind, I do share mood boards on Instagram when I can. So if you're looking to sort of get some mood boards just sort of hand delivered to you on social media, I do share them with the codes and some examples. If you would like to go from there, I also share the prompts. So if that's something you're interested in, is getting some free mood boards, just head over to my Instagram, follow me there, and you'll get some as I release them. But you get the idea with the basic use of mood boards. You can choose an artist, a visual style, an art genre, light, mood, a color palette, pretty much any visual medium or visual theme, anything you can find some kind of pattern in, you can use to create a mood board and get a little bit more influence over the images you produce. But if you want to go beyond just the basic functionality, I have a few tips on how you can use your mood boards, but also build better ones. So if I come into my mood boards, I have here Ukiyo-e Digital, which is one I created not that long ago, and I used some images in my last video on it that people really liked. So if I use that profile, come up and adjust my prompt of a man walking down a busy street with the profile code, and I send that on, and I get some Ukiyo-e-ish style images. Now again, I'm gonna dial the stylize up to see if I can reference my mood board a bit more. So I'm gonna use again, add a stylize of 1000. And I get these images which are looking much closer to the mood board, but also I'd really like to dial it in a lot further. So I'm gonna use the prompt again. And what I can do is define things like color or style. So I'm gonna add on the end, I've added Ukiyo-e comic book style, black, white, and red, because those are the colors I really wanna see. So now I submit again, and I can continue to try and refine that style. But after I've had a bit of a play with this mood board, I can come back over to personalize, over to Ukiyo-e Digital, and this time I'm gonna go view creations down this menu here, and I can see all of the creations I've made. I'm going to come right down to the bottom. Now I really like this style of image. So if I head back to create, use this prompt, but when I go back over to organize, when I come back to organize, I can find the image here and drag it up as a style reference. Now there's a lot of steps here, but if you stick with me, I'll explain how this is going to work. So I create an image with the style I prompted. I can add a style reference of an image I've created with this mood board to further dial it down to that style. I submit, and I can use that to refine the way the subject, the colors, and the layout looks. So this is a lot more consistent. But instead of going through this process every single time, now what I can do is head over to personalize and create what I call a refined mood board. So I go to personalize, create my mood board, and I call it Ukiyo-e Comic Red, whatever I feel like I'm going to sort of refer to it as more successfully. I go add from gallery, and I can click on the profiles on the right over here and filter by Ukiyo-e Digital. Now it's already filtered that way, and I don't want to select these other images that don't really suit. So I'm going to hold down Shift and select the last 4 images. These ones look pretty good. And all of these here, I'm pretty sure I've created with the same process, and they all have that sort of red tint to them all, and it all really matches the style I'm after. So I've generated a whole bunch of images before I made this video, obviously, of that style. Now you don't have to create that many. You probably only really need a good 20 or 30 images for this to work. But I'm going to select all of these because they all have the Ukiyo-e style. They all have the color, that comic sort of style of illustration. I head back, and by creating one mood board, really refining the style, generating a bunch of images, we can basically piggyback off it to create a more refined mood board that is very much on point. Now, these orange images aren't what I'm after. So I'm going to go through and clean some of these up to make sure I stick with that style. So this is where you go through and take your time to make sure you're getting exactly the style of image you want inside of the mood board so it all matches up. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to use it in my prompt, add in my simple prompt, which is, I'm going to use permutations here to trial different stylize levels. So I'm going to say --S for stylize. I'm going to go 100, which is the default, 400, and 1000. So if you're not sure how permutations work, if I add these curly brackets here and separate the values of commas, it will submit that prompt 3 times with a stylize of 100, 400, and 1000. So permutations are pretty powerful. I have to make sure I am on fast or turbo mode for them to work, otherwise I submit. So these are the images we got with the default stylize of 100. You can see the color is present, the style is present, and we haven't prompted or used any style references to achieve it. I crank the stylize up to 400, we get these images, and again, it has stuck to that style pretty well, and the more you play with it, the more you refine it, the better it gets. But up to a stylize of 1000, and these images I don't think look as good, but it still shows how that style is present with those colors. Now to get even closer to the style I wanted, I changed the subject of the prompt to a character called Yoshimitsu from Tekken, which always gets me some pretty cool images, and I've got these images with the prompts you can see on screen. So you can use this by referencing any of your mood boards, dialing in the style, using style references to get a very particular type of image, generate anywhere from say 20, 30 or up to 100 images, pop them all into a mood board and get a far more refined mood board by piggybacking and creating your mood boards that way. Now another experiment you can do with this whole process is we have our Ukiyo-e comic red here. If I want to use this prompt, when we're using version 7, we also have EXP. So if I tried something like say 10, and by adding EXP and bringing that score up from image to image, we can actually alter the style a little bit if we wanted to experiment to see what kind of different images we could create using our mood board. So that's just something you can experiment as well if you want to have a bit of fun with that in the process. Now so far I have been focusing purely on creating mood boards that match one particular style. What you can also do is try to mix styles. So to give you a good example, this is my Ukiyo Giga mood board, which you can see has a lot of the same Ukiyo-e images as before. If I scroll down, they eventually switch into HR Giga style images. So I've actually got 2 very distinctly different styles in this mood board because it's not necessarily going to create something that blends the two. It's going to create something pretty unique. So essentially, if I use this in a prompt, a man walking down a busy street, stylization's at 400. If I submit that, what we get is a little bit of a combination of the two, but like in a more unique sort of style that almost kind of stands on its own. So what then happens if I wanted to see more of the HR Giga influence? Well, I can go back to my mood board, go back into add from gallery, do a search for Giga, and start adding some more images. So now when I come back to my mood board, there are still a lot of Ukiyo-e images, but we've got a lot more of the Giga style images being added as well. So now if I use this in the prompt, with the same as before, a man walking down a busy street, same settings, stylize 400, submit. And now what we got is a little bit more in the HR Giga direction. So I can go back and forth and I can refine my mood board. But here's something that's really interesting. If you decide you wanted to go back and reference the old one, if I actually click on Ukiyo Giga on this particular set of images, we get this code, ITW4CDM. But if I come down to the previous one, which is a little bit more of the ukiyo-e style, and click on that, we get a different code. So you actually can record the codes for the various states of your mood boards even after you've refined them. But now after refining some of the images back on the mood board, I've come up with a third version which got me these images. So don't forget, you can actually go in and refine your mood boards, even record the old codes if you are just not quite happy with the end result after you first create it. Now, if you really don't want to rush this process, you can head to your organize page instead of actually going to personalize first, and come up the top here to folders, and essentially you can create a new folder. So I call this one ukiyo-e 3D mood board, and now I have a folder here I can add images into. So if I hold down Shift and select these 4 images, I can come down here to more, add to folder, ukiyo-e 3D mood board. And then over time I can search, I can look things up like Ukiyo 3D and start to add in various images into that mood board. And if I don't want to add them all, I can be a bit more selective. Keep adding them in. And now I have 35 images in this folder. I can also just simply search for other things and add these in bit by bit. Once I'm done, I'm going to turn the search off and simply click on this folder, because now I can review the images I've actually added. So there's a lot of this style of rose type image, but I've also got a ton of samurai images in there. So now I've taken time, maybe it's been a few days or a few weeks, I've collected a few images up. Now I can again go in to add that mood board. To keep it easy to identify, I'm going to call this one Samurai Ukiyo 3D. Again, I add from gallery, go up to my folders, click on this, and I can just simply go through and add these all in. I'm not going to add all of these because there's a whole bunch of them here. So I will deselect by holding down Shift. I can deselect images that either won't fit or maybe be a little too repetitive, get a bit more selective about which ones make their way in. Now I have this mood board full of samurais. So now again, I use it in a prompt. A man walking down a busy street. And we get another unique image style, which although it doesn't have any samurais in it, it does lean pretty heavily into that 3D and sort of like ukiyo-e style. So not all mood boards are about what's actually in the images themselves, but the style of the image. Now, the final thing I'm going to do is actually going to swing right back. We've talked about getting specific by picking an artist, color, style. What if we try to pick something that has a certain style, a certain color, a certain framing, all these various things to get truly, really, really specific? So I have this mood board, which I've called Cyberpunk Hanya. And the idea is every image has a little pink sort of glow to it, an anime style, and everything is framed up almost the same. I remove anything I think will conflict. So I've tried to get as specific as possible with all these various different images I actually made a few years ago using Niji. So if I use this in a prompt, I'm going to bring the stylize up to 400. I'm going to type in my prompt of, I'm going to say a man's face, simply because I want to try and match the face. We want to prompt for a face. I don't want to try and include anything else in there. I'm going to type in permutations again, version 7, and Niji. And with version 7, we got these images you see on screen right now. You can see all we prompted for is a man's face, but the style of image is very reminiscent to what we saw in the mood board. Moving up to Niji, and because those images were made with Niji, this is actually a newer version. We definitely get a very particular style of image with that also. So really trying to get a particular style, framing, and very drilled down image, you can get some interesting results. But also tried version 6 and got these images. As version 7 is smarter at reading the styles, I'd actually prefer it to be a little bit kind of less intelligent in order to bring more of the subject matter into the image. And this got some really interesting images with version 6. So I then decided to try a few different prompts to see what kind of results I could get to check the consistency, and it did not disappoint. So all of these different prompts all use that one mood board, and you can see how it's carried over a lot of the framing, the colors, the style. It's really done a great job of seeing that pattern in all the images that I added and applying it to my prompt and to the images that it generates. Another interesting thing I want to point out is I've mixed in some mood boards here, but I've got 6 different mood boards mixed in on this image. So you can see here, by throwing a whole bunch of mood boards at these different prompts, I get some very interesting images. So don't be afraid to really go hard and throw a bunch of mood boards at your prompts all at once, especially if you can select ones that are similar with maybe one or two different ones. You can get some pretty interesting images that way also. But otherwise, I hope that's given you an idea of how this all works, as well as some ideas you can use to go beyond the basic function of mood boards to create some really unique images you probably wouldn't get just from prompting. So that is the video for today, guys. Hope you found it useful. And if you did, please consider giving it a like. Otherwise, I want to thank you for watching. Hope to see you again next time. Have a great day.